Picture this. You're sitting alone in your room late at night, phone in your hand, heart just racing, checking if she replied, wondering why she's pulling away. You feel that ache, right? Every time you think about reaching out again, chasing someone who just doesn't chase you back.
And you tell yourself a story.
You do. You convince yourself that if you just try a little harder or say the perfect thing, be a bit more patient, then everything will finally click into place.
But it never does.
And deep down, you know it's just draining you. It's making you weaker. It's turning you into someone you don't even recognize anymore.
You've basically outsourced your self-worth. You've tethered your own internal peace to this external source, to her validation, her whim, her timing.
Yeah, and right in that moment of silence, when the anxiety is just screaming in your head, a voice from over 2,000 years ago cuts right through all that noise. It says, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things.
And that voice belongs to Epictetus. I mean, here's a man who understood bondage and freedom better than almost anyone. He was born into slavery, crippled for life, yet he achieved this state of, well, mental sovereignty that was probably greater than any emperor who ever lived. He wasn't writing for applause. He just spoke raw, unvarnished truth to anyone who was willing to actually listen.
And his students, they wrote it all down.
They did. They compiled his lectures into this small, brutal handbook called the Enchiridion.
Which means?
Literally, the handheld manual. It's the ultimate guide for mental freedom. It's designed specifically to cut through all that confusion, all that anxious striving and self-inflicted misery.
So that foundational principle, that's what we're going to be guided by in this deep dive. That men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of things.
That's the key that unlocks everything else.
So no more being a slave to other people's actions, no more suffering over what you can't control, and no more chasing validation that, let's be honest, never really comes. Our mission today is to do a really extensive line-by-line exploration of these principles in the Enchiridion. The ones that govern desire, relationships, rejection, and real personal power.
These are the exact practical lessons that can transform that desperate, externally dependent identity into an absolutely unshakable individual.
So if you're tired of feeling controlled by someone else's choices, and you're ready to take back the only thing that's ever truly been yours, your own mind, then stay with us. Because mastering this ancient manual, it changes everything.
It really does.
Okay, so let's unpack this central idea. Because Epictetus, he doesn't start with morality or justice or anything like that. He starts with logistics.
Right. It's very practical.
He demands this. This radical mental inventory. He insists that before you can even take a single step towards peace, you have to divide everything, literally everything in existence, into two categories.
And this division, this dichotomy of control, it's the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite for any kind of philosophical peace.
So what are the two categories?
This is the bedrock of Stoicism, and it's probably the most difficult mental exercise for anyone who's, anxiously striving for something. It's a framework for figuring out where your effort is actually productive and where it's just futile, self-destructive emotional labor.
Okay.
So we operate in two spheres. First, we have things in our power. Epictetus calls these our own.
Our own.
Yeah. And the sphere it's structurally small, but it's utterly sovereign. It includes our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, and most critically, our judgment.
Our judgment.
Yes. This is what the Stoics called prohairesis, our deliberate choice. And Epictetus is emphatic about this. These things are, quote, by nature free. They can't be taken away, they can't be influenced, they can't be compelled by any external force, no matter how powerful or violent it is.
So this prohairesis, it's more than just free will then. It sounds like our moral compass or the CEO of our inner life.
That's a great way to put it. The CEO of our inner life. It's the faculty that assigns value and chooses action. It's the seat of your character. And because it's internal, it can never, ever be enslaved.
Epictetus himself proved that.
He absolutely did. I mean, his body was owned, it was tortured, but his prohairesis remained completely untouched. It is the one thing the external world can never seize, which is why it has to be the sole focus of all our effort.
Okay, so that's the first category. The small, powerful, internal one. What's the other?
Well, then we have the other side of the ledger. The vast, chaotic, often disappointing ocean of things not in our power. The external.
And this is everything else.
Everything that isn't prohairesis. So your physical body, it's going to get old, it's going to die. Your possessions, your reputation, what other people say about you, your job title, and overwhelmingly the actions, thoughts, and feelings of other people.
So her decision to text back.
That is squarely in the second uncontrollable category. These external things are weak, they're dependent, and they're fundamentally alien to us. They belong to someone else's prohairesis. You do not own her opinion of you. You don't own her decision to stay or go. You certainly don't own the timing of her reply.
And the promise Epictetus makes here is, it's huge. He says, if you can really internalize this, if you can confine all your emotional investment to what's truly yours, that first category, then a couple of things happen.
Right.
First, no one can ever truly compel you or hinder you. And second, you'll never complain about anyone or anything. You'll achieve genuine, unassailable freedom instantly.
And the warning is the mirror image of that. It explains all the anxiety we talked about at the start. If you try to claim what is not yours, if you desperately try to control another person's affections, their response time, their view of you, Epictetus guarantees you will be frustrated, you will grieve.
And you blame everyone else.
You'll inevitably fall into the trap of blaming God's fate, other people for your discomfort. But that frustration, it's not the world being unjust. It's just the natural consequence of you confusing the two spheres.
Okay, this is where we have to connect it directly to the listener. The chase trap. When you're anxiously waiting for that text. Or you're sitting there planning the exact thing to say to you to manipulate a relationship outcome.
You are fundamentally staking your peace on the external.
Yeah, you've placed your happiness outside of the only place it can possibly survive. Your own choice.
It's a bit... Imagine you're standing outside a locked fortress, and you're just throwing yourself against the walls, begging the guards to let you in.
The fortress is her mind.
The fortress is the other person's prohairesis. The guards are their opinions, their emotions. You have no way to control them. And yet the chaser expends infinite energy trying to influence what happens inside that locked fortress. It guarantees exhaustion and pain.
But the key insight, and this is what's so brutal and liberating about it, is that we choose to give these external things, the silence, the rejection, that power over us.
We do. The moment you confuse the spheres, the moment you treat an external thing, like her opinion of you, as an internal good that's necessary for your survival, you have voluntarily given up your freedom.
You've basically said, my self-worth is conditional on her actions.
Exactly. And freedom, for a Stoic, isn't being able to get everything you want. It's the much, much more powerful ability to want only the things you can guarantee.
Which is only the quality of your own choices.
And that realization is what moves you from desperate striving to, well, unshakable self-possession.
So the map is drawn. We know what we control. It's our judgment.
Yeah.
Now we have to move on to the battlefield itself. How do we actually wield that control when we're faced with painful, unavoidable external realities like rejection or silence or just emotional detachment? How do we stop that automatic, painful personalization of it?
Well, we have to go right back to that core axiom. We have to really dig into it. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things. This is the psychological operating system of Stoicism.
The operating system, I like that.
The physical event, the silence, the rejection letter, the hurtful comment is, in a vacuum, neutral. It's just a fact of the universe.
Okay, that's the part that's so hard to apply, right? Because if the thing is neutral, how does Epictetus explain the physical, overwhelming feeling of grief or anxiety that follows rejection? Is he just saying we should suppress that?
Not at all, and that's a common misunderstanding. He's not advocating for repression, but for recategorization. He acknowledges that initial shock.
That gut punch.
That gut punch. The physical sensation of grief is an involuntary reaction, a proto-passion. What he condemns is the assent to that impression, the thing that turns a momentary sensation into prolonged destructive suffering.
So the suffering isn't the initial feeling.
The suffering is the self-inflicted interpretation we layer on top of the event. The thing is one person left. The view is, this means I am worthless and will die alone.
The event is non-reciprocation. Yeah. The destructive suffering is because we applied a faulty value judgment to it.
Precisely. The event isn't the problem. The story we immediately and reflexively tell ourselves about the event is the problem.
And he gives us a tool for this, a technique.
Yes, the Stoic pause. It's a practical, real-time cognitive technique. When an impression, a fantasia hits you, that spike of anxiety, that feeling of being ignored, he advises you to immediately halt the mental chain reaction.
You stop it in its tracks.
You interject and you say to yourself, you are merely an impression and not at all the thing you appear to be. That statement creates necessary distance.
It buys you a second. a second to apply reason instead of just raw emotion.
It does. And it lets you initiate the 4 steps of judgment control, which you have to practice rigorously.
Okay, what are they?
Step 1 is acknowledge. Notice the feeling, the grief, the anger. Don't pretend you don't feel it, but recognize it as an emotional signal related to an external event.
Okay.
Step 2, test. Ask yourself, does this impression concern something securely in my power, my prohairesis, or something external? If the feeling is because she didn't text back, that's external.
Right, and that's where we break the automatic anxious link. We categorize it.
Then step 3, correct. If you confirm the source of your distress is external, her decision, remind yourself firmly that it is weak, temporary, and alien. It has no moral bearing on your character.
It means nothing about you.
And finally, step 4, action. Focus only on the virtuous action available to you right now. That might be shifting your focus to your work or simply refraining from sending that disparate follow-up text.
So applying this directly to rejection, the thing is just one person choosing not to engage with you. That is a neutral fact. The view that causes all the suffering is, this event invalidates my entire worth, or I have to chase her to prove my value.
You're applying a moral failure where there's only a factual change in circumstance. And what's really wild is how this applies to external criticism, which is, it's everywhere now.
Oh yeah, social media.
Epictetus teaches that an external criticism is only an insult if you decide it is. If someone calls you a fool, they're just expressing their own flawed, partial opinion.
And since their opinion is entirely outside my control,
it literally cannot affect your character. The moment you realize that, the insult vanishes. They only have power over you if you value their external judgment more than your own knowledge of your inner untouched character.
So when they insult you, and you agree with them that you deserve it, you're doing their job for them.
You're doing their job for them. Stop giving away that power. If someone says you're a failure, the event is just sound waves hitting your ear. The suffering is your internal agreement with that assessment. If you refuse to agree, the harm just stops. It becomes their problem, not yours.
Okay, so we're learning to control our immediate judgments. But what about the reality of loss? Things change, people leave. The anxiously striving person is terrified of this.
They are, because they equate the external object with their internal peace. The Stoic disarms this fear with a practice called premeditatio malorum.
The premeditation of evils. That sounds really negative.
It does, doesn't it? Especially in our culture of think positive and manifest success. This suggests intentionally dwelling on potential disaster.
Why would you do that?
Because the default mental state is to expect permanence. And permanence is the one thing the external world cannot and will not offer. The Stoic isn't caught off guard by loss because they practice the hard realism of anticipating that things outside their control will inevitably be lost or taken away.
It's about realistic expectations.
It's a sober but vital lesson. When you enjoy anything external, a relationship, a possession, even the presence of a loved one, you have to consciously remind yourself what it is. Temporary.
He uses some pretty brutal language here.
He does, and it's on purpose, to shock us out of sentimental illusion. He says, if you kiss your child, remind yourself you are kissing a mortal. If you cherish a vase, remember it is fragile.
That is extremely difficult to accept, especially with relationships. It sounds like you're trying to suppress the joy of it.
It's not about suppressing joy. It's about managing attachment. It's realistic expectation management. By acknowledging the temporary nature of all external things, you prevent yourself from developing this desperate attachment that will shatter you when the inevitable change comes.
So instead of being mentally fragile, assuming the relationship will last forever, we build resilience by accounting for impermanence in advance.
Exactly. When that external thing, the relationship, the job, the source of attention is taken away, the shock is minimized because you already accounted for it. You are simply returning something that belonged to the universe, not something that belonged to you.
You say, I knew this was mortal. I loved it while it was here.
And I accept its return to its source. This practice directly attacks the desperate grip of the person tethered to external approval. If you expect things outside your control to be reliable, you are fragile. If you expect them to be temporary, you are resilient.
And that resilience is born from realism, not positive thinking.
The resilient person can enjoy the moment without feeling entitled to the future. The desperate person feels entitled to the future because they believe that external thing is necessary for their well-being. Premeditatio malorum cuts that tether instantly.
That's a powerful transition.
Yeah.
Because if the goal is resilience, we have to look directly at the primary engine of non-resilience, which is desire.
Right. Once you understand the dichotomy of control and how judgment works, the next logical step in the Enchiridion is managing the emotional forces that drag you toward the uncontrollable: desire and aversion.
Yeah, okay.
The core teaching here is simple, but it's totally revolutionary. If you want anything that is not securely within your power, you are guaranteed to suffer. Guaranteed.
Your desire is the hook.
It is. It makes you a slave to the object of that desire.
So let's talk about that slavery metaphor. If the thing I desire, is it reciprocated affection from a specific person, is controlled by them, I've essentially just handed them the keys to my emotional state.
You become a puppet. Their absence makes you suffer, their presence makes you temporarily happy. But your overall state is dictated entirely by their choices. You are tethered. The moment you define your happiness by what they think or feel or do, you have chosen enslavement.
So what's the solution? The paradox of desire.
Exactly. Since desire for externals is the root of frustration, Epictetus argues the wise person has to strive to eliminate that kind of desire, or at least confine it strictly to things within their control.
So what can you safely desire?
You can safely desire to act virtuously, to make rational choices, to maintain the quality of your own moral character. You should desire to be a good person, not desire to be rich or desired by others.
So the goal isn't to be a cold, unfeeling robot. It's to redirect that energy of desire into the only area where it can produce guaranteed fulfillment.
Your internal moral life. Precisely. And aversion management is the same coin, other side. We should only direct aversion, the desire to avoid something, toward what's in our control and contrary to nature, which is making a wrong moral choice.
So don't try to avoid pain or death or being rejected.
It's futile. Those things are external and they are guaranteed parts of life. Directing aversion toward the uncontrollable only creates panic and fear.
This has huge implications for work and ambition. If I desperately want a promotion, which is external, I'm signing up for anxiety and frustration.
But if you want to put in your best, most honest effort,
Which is internal.
that desire is safe. The outcome, the promotion, becomes irrelevant to your inner peace because your desire was fulfilled the moment you acted well.
And this is the critical realization. You gain power not by successfully capturing the external object, the person, the job, the reply, but by successfully restraining the desire for it in the first place.
When you no longer need it, you are powerful.
This connects so directly to our modern habits, especially that instant gratification loop that fuels the chase. We're trading lasting internal peace for these fleeting little dopamine hits of validation.
And Epictetus warns us about the hidden price of these external goods. He says they all come with a price tag, and that price is often your virtue. If you want riches or status or the sustained attention of an emotionally unavailable person, you have to be prepared to pay.
With flattery, with compromising your standards, with acting against your true self.
Yes, the person seeking external validation pays this price constantly. They debase themselves, they lose their dignity, they trade their self-respect for a little bit of attention.
They barter it away.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, Epictetus is offering this revolutionary form of wealth, the certainty of never being disappointed. Because you only desire what's guaranteed, your own character. You go from being a beggar asking for scraps of validation to being a self-sufficient sovereign.
So the Stoic is now internally secure. But we don't live in a vacuum. We have to deal with other people, especially when their actions hurt us. How do we apply this when we get rejected or face malice?
Epictetus teaches us a radical form of relational impartiality. We have to view others as independent agents, guided by their own internal ruling principle, their own prohairesis.
Their choices are their own.
They're inaccessible and uncontrollable by us. And this is the key perspective shift. Their decision to reject you or ghost you isn't primarily a statement about you.
It's a statement about them.
It's a statement about them and the current state of their internal ruling principle. They are simply acting in a way that seems rational or good to them in that moment, no matter how misguided it seems to us.
Okay, intellectually that makes sense. But is it emotionally feasible? My first thought isn't, that's their prohairesis at work. It's, what did I do wrong?
The emotional feasibility comes from consistent practice of the Stoic pause. I realize that the only person who can truly harm you is yourself. If someone speaks ill of you or rejects you, their opinion is just an external opinion. It has zero weight unless you choose to give it weight.
The harm isn't in their action, but in my reaction.
In your internal agreement with their negative judgment. If you take offense, you are the one choosing to be harmed by valuing their external judgment above your own internal peace.
So with modern trolling or gossip,
Epictetus's guidance is incredibly robust. When someone is abusive, remember they're just acting on their opinion of you. And if they're mistaken, which they almost certainly are since they can't see your inner state, then they are the one who suffers the delusion. The insult is a consequence of their error, not your failure.
So the counter tactic isn't to argue back.
No, that's chasing their approval to prove them wrong. The counter tactic is purely internal. You internalize the truth. Your character is untouched. You respond only with dignity or maybe even pity for their mistaken judgment. You don't lower yourself to their level.
Because that validates their authority over you.
It validates their foolishness. The Stoic response is radical non-engagement. You maintain silence and dignity, knowing that their error cannot get inside your inner citadel.
This focus on internal dignity leads right into the importance of silence and restraint.
Yes. Epictetus gives a strong warning here. Do not strive to make a show of your philosophical principles. Let your deeds, not your words, reflect your practice.
This is a huge diagnostic test for the chaser.
It is. The person chasing validation almost always over-explains, over-apologizes, over-performs.
They're constantly broadcasting their desire, looking for reassurance.
This broadcasting, this pleading for attention, is exactly what Epictetus advises against. It's an act of weakness because it shows you're reliant on the external. It tells the world, I can't validate myself, please do it for me.
True strength, then, is shown by silence and restraint, by acting correctly without needing applause.
If you behave well, why do you need someone else to tell you that you did? Your own inner standard, your prohairesis, is the only judge that matters.
So when you're rejected, maintaining silence is crucial for self-respect.
If someone chooses to leave, let them. Trying to talk them out of it is claiming control over their decision and sacrificing your own dignity. Maintaining your silence is the fiercest assertion of self-control.
And he has that rule of the dinner party analogy, right?
It's a beautiful illustration. He says, treat life like a dinner party. If a dish, say, money, or a relationship passes you by, don't demand it or grieve its absence. If it comes to you, take a modest portion, enjoy it, but recognize it could be taken away.
Some ultimate freedom is.
Desiring nothing, accepting everything that happens with indifference because it's external, and acting with virtue regardless of the circumstance.
Which is the exact opposite of social media, which is this global dinner party where everyone is desperately stretching for dishes they were never meant to have.
While the Stoic waits patiently at the table, they aren't defined by the dishes that land on their plate, but by the manner in which they dine. With dignity, self-sufficiency, and moderation.
We've established what to avoid, what to relinquish. Now, the final step in the Enchiridion is about what to build. What is the essential you that needs no external input to stay whole?
This is where we focus on our primary enduring duty.
Which is?
Epictetus says your chief task in life is singular, to keep your moral purpose, your prohairesis, in harmony with nature and reason. That's it.
That's it.
All other roles, partner, friend, professional, are secondary and temporary. They're like costumes you wear for a scene.
You might be a son today, a spouse tomorrow.
But you are always a rational human being, and your core duty is always to make rational, virtuous choices in every situation. That primary duty is your only constant. It's the only thing that guarantees your worth.
And that focus is the blueprint for the inner citadel, the unshakable self.
A place where your true self resides, untouched by the chaos outside. External circumstances cannot touch the walls of the citadel unless you let them.
If you're poor, you can still choose to be honest. If you're alone, you can still choose to be diligent.
The circumstance is external and neutral. Your response is internal and moral. Think of Hercules. He achieved greatness not through external glory, but by meeting every task, even the ugly, difficult ones, with virtue and courage. He didn't control the tasks, he only controlled his approach to them.
So the listener's current task is to face the discomfort of non-reciprocation without sacrificing their self-respect.
And that is a Herculean task in our modern age. The consistent daily practice of Stoicism is what builds the strength to do it.
Okay, so this can't just be theoretical. Epictetus gives specific, actionable habits for building this inner citadel.
He does. These are non-negotiable mental exercises. First, the morning rehearsal. Start the day by mentally rehearsing the dichotomy of control. Before you check your phone, spend 5 minutes reminding yourself, my peace is confined to my choices, what people think, what happens today. It's all external and irrelevant to my core worth.
That front-loads your day with reason, not anxiety.
Second, the preemptive question. Before any big action, especially before sending that desperate text, ask yourself 2 questions. What is the consequence of this choice to my prohairesis? And does this action rely on something external for its reward?
And if the answer is yes to the second one,
The action must be stopped. You are protecting your inner virtue from external market forces.
third, the nightly accounting.
At the end of the day, review your actions and judgments. Where did you get upset and why? Was it because you confused the spheres? Did you assume control over the uncontrollable? It's a moral audit. It prevents you from making the same mistakes over and over.
And the core of all of this is the rule of immediate choice.
Every single time that impulse to chase or to plead arises, you have a split-second choice. You can obey the impression and become a slave to your impulse, or you can pause, apply the dichotomy, and remain free. That consistent practice of pausing is the mechanism that generates real mental strength.
The synthesis of all this, then, is radical self-sufficiency. The free man is the one who finds his complete value and purpose entirely within the sphere of his own choices. He doesn't need external applause or a specific partner to confirm his worth.
He is complete. And by being complete on his own, he becomes immune to the pain of rejection, because rejection stops being a judgment on his character and becomes just a statement of external fact, a dish that simply passed by his seat at the feast.
So we began this deep dive anchored in the desperation of the chase, that feeling of insufficiency and fear. And we conclude by realizing that the greatest power we have isn't the power to command affection, but the power to relinquish the desire to control others.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is that these principles aren't about becoming cold or emotionless. They're about correctly placing responsibility. You aren't responsible for how the world acts toward you, but you are responsible fully and completely for your own rational, virtuous response.
That's the source of all dignity.
All dignity, self-respect, and freedom.
And Epictetus insists that if you seek to live this way, you have to be prepared to be laughed at, scorned by people who don't understand your freedom.
They'll call you detached or odd or arrogant because you've stopped playing their zero-sum game of external striving.
They'll mock your silence because they mistake it for weakness. They'll misunderstand your restraint because they think it comes from a lack of desire.
When really it comes from the deepest desire of all, the desire for guaranteed internal virtue.
So, we'll leave you with this provocative thought: the ultimate test of Epictetan freedom. If you stop needing any external validation tomorrow, not just from the person you were chasing, but from everyone, what is the single courageous action you would take that you are currently too afraid to attempt?
That answer, that reveals the true character that's lying dormant just beneath the anxiety, waiting only for your assent to be set free. Think on that.
Until the next deep dive, keep practicing the pause. That moment of choice is everything.